The California Teachers Association, CTA, and the Institute for Teaching, IFT, present IFT Expo 2015, a series of presentations by IFT grant recipients.
All right, we are using the microphone this session, so bear with us. My name is Rich Sandoval. This is Joel Sebastian. This is Sarah Morgan. We are going to present to you. Right now, you should have a blue form on your table, so if you could grab one of those blue forms. On one side, it has our information and our websites to contact us if you need to, if you have any questions, and look at some of our work. On the other side, it has the matrix by the IFT, so it gives you an idea of what to plan out for, and we'll go over that in our presentation. I'm going to hand it over to Joel Sebastian, and he'll go through the work.
Okay, I'm trying this microphone, so you all hear me? A little hard. Okay, my name is Joel Sebastian, and I'm a U.S. history teacher at Merced High School in the Central Valley. And Mr. Sandoval and I are both in the same school, Merced, and we've been teaching for about 15 years. We've team taught before, but right now we're both in our own classrooms. And we talked one day, and we discussed how with high-stakes testing, the old STAR tests, CSTs, and now with Common Core, there's been that push for ELA. There's been a push in math and now STEM programs. And we thought, you know, with No Child Left Behind, for a lot of us, it seems like social studies has been left behind. So we wanted to find a way. And it's not just at high school. I've talked to middle school and elementary teachers, and it seems like the time has been shrunk quite a bit for that. So we wanted to do something where we're getting the kids to go beyond the textbook and go beyond the classroom. And so with that idea in mind, we decided that we were going to apply for one of these IFT grants and do a project where the students would basically be in charge. So we applied for 2 grants over the last 3 years. One was an oral history project, and you can see the logo at the top of the title slide. And that was a kind of classroom project that we ended up expanding to the community. And then we went beyond that because we enjoyed doing it so much. It was such a rewarding experience. And we decided to do a summer program, and we applied for a $20,000 chapter grant, and we expanded it to the whole school district. So a couple things that we had to consider as we were putting these grants together was finding partners. I highly recommend that if you're interested in doing one of these grants, find people to work with. It's a very difficult process to do by yourself. It takes a lot of time, there's a lot of commitment, and a bit of paperwork with that first application. And I know one of the other presenters will talk about that. So myself and Mr. Sandoval, we have the social studies background, but we wanted someone that had some tech components, and that's when Sarah Morgan, our teacher librarian, came on board. So we wanted to be able to work cross grade level. Mr. Sandoval teaches world history. I teach U.S. history. So we chose 3 classes, a sophomore world history, a U.S., and a AP US. So we had a range of students from special ed all the way to advanced placement, and they all took part in the project. Then what did we want to accomplish? What did we want to do with these programs? For us, we wanted students to have history that was relevant, and we wanted to have hands-on history. So we started with the oral history project, and then in the second year, we did a summer history project where students actually did a 3-week intensive project that ended up being a museum exhibit for the 124th anniversary of our city. So they went from self to family to community over the course of 2 years. And it was very rewarding for them. In addition to ourselves, we also went to our administrator and we said, look, we're going to apply for this grant. Do we have your support? And our principal was amazing. He said if you needed more money, he would find it somewhere, somehow, transportation, school facilities, whatever we needed, he was there for us. So to get everyone involved was really important. We also wanted to go into the community and get community involvement. With the nature of the projects, we're going to get parental involvement. And so we have a local courthouse museum, and we went to talk to them to see if they could help give us some resources. And Sarah Lim, the director, she's like, well, why don't we make an exhibit out of what your students are doing? So something we envisioned to just be done in the school ended up becoming an exhibit in the community. So our classes would meet. We had all the students, every single one had to interview a family member, and they created a biography of their family member. And then from that, is the material that was used to put together the museum exhibit. And the exhibit was Young Historians at Work. So it didn't just focus on the families, but on the process and the kids themselves. We also looked for some guidance on oral history itself. We had never done a project like this, and there wasn't a lot of local resources on that, so we branched out, we did a little research, and we were able to work with the Regional Oral History Office out of UC Berkeley. So we had an overnight trip, and we met with the Berkeley people at the Bancroft Library, and they helped guide us and start that process, which was also very rewarding. We set deadlines. The students collected the information. They put the exhibit together. And we brought in different classes. The culinary class made the food for our film festival. Rich, if you want to show them the poster.
Also, we had our presentation that we had students create posters, so they had to design and promote the film, the event that we had on campus. So they created posters. We have another one on the table there. And so they had to be creative, and they created everything. They had to promote it. They had to send out letters to the members in the community, to their own families, and they started to develop all these different types of skills. So everything was student-based, everything was student work, and it was rewarding in many different levels.
So once we completed our oral history project, and we also ended on campus with a film festival, some of the students were able to actually videotape and interview family members, and we chose 6 to highlight, invited the community, and had a film festival at the end of the year. And so we decided to expand on that, and then we applied for our Summer History Program. And once again, using some of the 21st century skills, our teacher librarian, she put together a website. We talked to all the social studies departments on our 6 campuses across 3 different towns. And we invited students to apply for this program. And we had applicants from 5 of the 6 high schools, and I believe 4 high schools students completed the project.
You know, another thing that helps out too in recruitment is they did the application process, but also there was credit for an elective course, so they got school credit. They also got community service, anything outside of the classroom, and there was a lot of community service hours that were there, so that contributed to their graduation status for community service. And also the field trips. There was a couple of field trips that Joel will talk about, which that's always nice for our community because they don't have the opportunity to get out. And so this really brought the world a little bit closer to them.
Okay. One of the challenging parts of applying for this grant was the matrix. I think that's the intimidating part. So instead of going through it step by step, what we decided to do is kind of show you where we felt the parts of the matrix fit in with what we actually did with the students. So if you have the matrix, these are the parts that you're going to write up. And so we wanted to kind of just show you how we felt that the matrix questions helped guide what we did with our students. So the first thing we want to do is make sure that it was student-centered. I've told a couple other groups, Institute for Teaching is teacher-directed projects, but by the time we were finished, it was student-directed. So we kind of set the parameters and we turned them loose. So once the students were accepted into the program, they met several times to begin their research. We would meet monthly with the group before they started the 3-week summer program. And they were given basically a 3-room empty exhibit that they had to research, come up with the captions, collect the photos, interview people from the city, and they're putting together the 125th anniversary of the city of Merced's anniversary exhibit.
So to the right of Rich in that picture is Sarah Lim. She's the director of the museum. And so the students worked with her, some of them on a weekly basis, and she was the one who came up with the themes after we all sort of brainstormed. She said, she finally put her foot down and said, okay, these are the 3 themes we're gonna have. We had a room about the government of our city, the room about culture, and about public works and things like that. And so the students then chose their specific topic. And the important thing about that in any project-based learning is that students need to have buy-in. And so because they got to choose their subject and they got to choose something that was meaningful to them personally, they got a lot out of it. And this is what one of our students said, Sandra. She said, this type of research is a lot of work. You can't just Google everything about the history of Merced. It doesn't come up anywhere. And a lot of the information hasn't been synthesized. So whatever you do find, you kind of have to analyze it on your own. So fabulous, right?
And because the students were put in groups, each group had their own room. So from research, design to implementation. Also, we want to make sure that this is relevant history to the students. So the connections that they were making with their family in the oral history project, learning things about their grandparents, having a real conversation in depth. We had students that found out their grandparents participated in civil rights marches, were part of the 442nd, had been interned in camps during the Second World War, had been an Air Force bomber pilot during the Cold War. Just amazing stories that were collected and then were shared with the community. In addition, the students, they were on a project-based deadline. They had to have this done. The last day of the project was the opening of the museum exhibit. There are no extensions. There is no turn it in late. So if you see in the picture right here, you have these young ladies. They're putting together a model of downtown Merced 1950s. And so they had the historical picture. They designed with cardboard the buildings. We got some historical models. And you can see their final product in the exhibit in the background. So the students were really interdependent on each other to be able to accomplish these tasks. And each group had a task. Behind them, in the far corner, two students were putting together, they hand-built a model of the water tower of Merced, and you'll see that water tower in a couple of slides up on the wall exhibited. So once again, there's the original blank. There's your 3 rooms. Make it happen.
Yeah, many of the students, when they came in and we took them to these empty rooms, they were instantly intimidated. They were like, this is not for me. We signed up for something that we can't complete. And we're like, well, let's see how it goes. Let's see what we learn. And at the end, they filled it all up. The whole community came out. It was the 125th anniversary. I mean, it was a big deal, and they were all part of that to create. So it was a well worth experience.
We brought in guest speakers. We brought them on field trips. It went from where's the worksheet that I can fill in to self-creation, set the tasks and the deadlines. And they gave to the community instead of the community giving to them. And it was a wonderful process. The last thing I wanted to quick mention is right here. It says laying the foundation. That was one of the exhibit titles. And I think that's what we did with our students. We laid that foundation. We gave them the skills. We took them out of the Central Valley. We made them do a field trip overnight to LA, to San Francisco. And we let them see that there's opportunities out for them. You have the base, and now let's see what you can do and work towards the future. And some of them said, this was a great project, but I would never want to be a historian after having done all this work. And I have another student, Erica. She's like, Mr. Sebastian, what are we doing next year? Please do this again. Don't let it just be a one and done. And
some of them decided they want to be gallery directors or work in museums from the experiences they had with museums.
And that's our final group, and they're our graduates of Summer History Program, first graduating class. Thank you. Questions?
Do take a look at our website. That was our working website. It's not like a show and tell website necessarily, but that way you can see what we, the students and the teachers, created while we were in process. So if you have any questions, feel free to email us.
Learn more about the Institute for Teaching and its commitment to strength-based teacher-driven change at www.teacherdrivenchange.org and follow us on Twitter @CTAIFT.